Hello. Welcome to another installment of the Central American Group's podcast, in which experts discuss topics related to doing business in Costa Rica, El Salvador, and the rest of the region.
Hello. Welcome to another episode in our continuing series of discussions with individuals that are expert in various aspects of doing business in Central America. Today, we're fortunate to have Ariel Andrade with us. Ariel is a former ambassador from El Salvador to India, and he's going to speak a little bit about India's trade relations with Central America. Welcome to our podcast, and how are you today, Ariel?
I'm fine, thank you, Stephen, and I'm very happy to be here with you today to talk about India. I'm not very experienced in this podcast tool, but I hope everything goes well. So please help me with this.
Okay, since you're someone who has vast experience with India, perhaps you can tell us why in recent times India has become relevant on the world stage.
Okay, as I was saying, I'm passionate about India, and the reason why India is become very important in the world now is there are several reasons for that. But if you allow me, I will focus on some points that I think are the most important in terms of doing business. So, first of all, I would say that size and location is very important. India is by far, by now, the 7th largest country in the world. Has almost 3 million square kilometers. And of that land, 25% are forest. So imagine how many biological resources they have in those reserves. Also, they have more than 300 square kilometers of exclusive economic zone in the Indian Ocean, which happen to be one of the most important oceans in terms of trade routes. Imagine in that ocean, 80% of the world seaborne trade oil is in transit. And also India is the 3rd most important country in the world in terms of fishery. So being there and by the size is a very important reason. Second, size of the population. By now, India is the 2nd most populated country in the world. They have almost 1,382 million persons. But they are growing each year by 16.6 million persons. So imagine in comparison with the population of Central America, we are roughly about 50 million. So in 3 years, the population of India, only the new population of India is almost the same than in Central America. By 2021 or 2022, India will be more populated than China. So that's very important in terms of the workforce. If that is a very important result for India. Also, I must appoint that middle class in India is growing. They jumped from less than 30 million in 2010 to around 300 million middle class population. So it's a growing market and a very important market in terms of consumption. And it is expected that by 2030, that market will be 650 million. So important to have that in mind. I think also that is important to have in mind in 3rd position, the economic size of their economy. This year, India is the 5th largest economy in the world, only behind United States, China, Japan, and Germany. So far, they have a GDP of 2,875 billion, and it's important to know that that GDP has been growing steady and fast. in the last year. For example, in the last 5 years, they had grown in an average of 6.89%. And that makes them to compete with China to be the the fastest growing economy in the world. And it is expected that India becomes, by 2030, the third largest economy in the world, with a GDP of gross 77,000 billion dollars, 7 trillion. So it is also possible that to 2050 or 2060, India is the largest economy in the world. So that is something to have in mind when you are talking of a strategy in terms of business. Also, India in terms of economy is a very important country in terms of import and export. Last year, India imported 478.88 million US dollar and exported 323 billion dollars. So you are talking about a very important market in terms of imports, in terms of export. What else? I think also that you have to take in mind that India has been growing its presence in the world, not only because of this reason, but also in terms of how to do business. You think now many of the most important companies in the world are now led by Indian. As you can see, Google CEOs is from Indian origin, Microsoft CEO is from Indian origin, IBM is also from Indian origin. So you will find a lot of people from Indian origin in large companies. And that is, I think, important in terms of mindset of doing business. And I think that contributes to this importance and relevance of India in the global economic world.
Well, that's a pretty good overview of the economy and the significance of India in the world. What's the economic relations between Central America and India like today?
Yes, thank you, Steve. I must say that Central America has been a growing interest region for India. It has not been that important in the past, but in the last year, perhaps the last 15 years, the interest of Indian business in the region has grown a lot. Last year, in 2019, the total exchange of goods between India and Central America reached almost 1.9 billion US dollars. That is very important to have in mind, as it says that India is becoming a very relevant partner of the region in terms of import and export. Most as a supplier, India exported to Central America almost 1.24 billion last year, and the region only exported to India 642 million. So it is important to have that in mind, because the region is a very important market in terms of imports, and it develops a lot of relations with the US and China and Europe, but steadily and perhaps silently, India is becoming a very important supplier for the region. And I think it is also relevant to say that in terms of investment, also India is growing in the region. In the last 5 years, the region received almost 660 million US dollars in terms of investment in the region. And I know it's not a big number now, but it has been growing a lot in the last year. So I think that is a trend to have in mind in terms of the relation between India and Central America. I think it's important also to have in mind that that relation between India and Central America has not happened from zero. There have been a lot of things to do to get to that point. And in terms of diplomatic relation, it's important to see that 5 of the 8 countries that are included in the SICA system, that is the Central American Integration System, there are 8 countries. Of those, 5 countries has embassies in India, which is very important because India is on the other side of the world. Also, there are several honorary consuls from the region in India and also from India in the region. 10 honorary consuls from Central American countries are in India and 7 from India in the region. Also, the relation between chambers of commerce of India had been growing with the region. A lot of chambers are doing now trade fair, commercial missions, and that kind of events are, creating a bridge between the business community in our countries and them. Also, I must point that a lot of Indian business promoters are now living in the region. And it is, I know it could not look important, but it is, because in terms of culture, maybe I can go deeper on this a little bit later. It is important to do business with India through the Indian business agent, because there is a matter of the relation. A lot of big companies from India are now in the region. I can mention easily to you that UPL, one of the largest fertilizer companies, is now having a very important strategy in the region, mostly in Costa Rica. But there are also a lot of vehicles companies like Bajaj, Mahindra, Hero Motors are in the region. In the IT sector, Wipro, TCS. And when you talk to pharma, you will find Dr. Reddy, Cipla, some pharma. So big companies are present in the region, and they are steadily growing in terms of business with the region. So that is, in a general view, the relation between Central America and the region in the actual moment.
It seems like there's a lot of room for growth. Taking that into account, what are the untapped opportunities that you see for people that want to do business between Central America and India?
Well, there are different levels on this. If we're talking about exchange of goods, as I mentioned, it was almost 2 billion last year in terms of exchange of goods between India and Central America. But if you take different measures, like, for example, ITC, International Trade Center, has a very important tool called Export Potential Market. And that tool shows that there is almost 1.5 billion of untapped opportunities for doing business for India, and 246 million for SICA for doing export to India. So if you see just on untapped opportunity that stand for things like what is that country importing and which country is exporting that, and how are the tariff. That is very simple concept for the trade, and you will find that we can easily double the trade between India and Central American countries. I think that is one level. The other level is in terms of the opportunities that the region has because of being a free trade zone, and more than a free trade zone, being a free trade spirit zone. As you know, we are committed with having free trade agreements with several countries all over the world. So in that spirit, we have created a large network of opportunities. So for Indian companies, it is not only the opportunity, it is a very important an attractive opportunity for doing business, because they see that they can not only supply for the regional market products like the things we import for the local consumption, but also they can export through the region by doing joint ventures or doing those kind of solutions. They can re-export products to third markets. Like, we have free trade agreement with the United States. Uh, we have free trade agreement with the European Union, Mexico, and several other countries. So that opportunity is very important for the companies. And it says that also in this new situation we have after COVID, it should be deepened, because now the companies are more uh, have more clarity that they have to diversify their supply chain. So doing some sort of nearshoring investment for the, for example, the US market could be a very successful strategy that can potentially create more stability in the supply chain for the US market. So I think that is some another opportunity to have in mind. And in terms of sectors, well, you will find that it would be different in terms of the countries. You take, for instance, Guatemala, Costa Rica, or Honduras. They are more agricultural countries in terms of they have that sector is very, 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 very strong. But if you go to El Salvador, the agricultural sector is not that strong. We are more into the services and more into the manufacturing sector. But when you take the general overview, there are many sectors to create opportunities, to take advantage of those opportunities in terms of, for example, light manufacturing, energy, textiles, plastics, and of course, agri-technology, agri-tech, IT, software, and all those are very important opportunities for Indian companies that are, let's say, very important in the world in that sector. So in general, I could say that those are very important opportunities for doing business in the following years between India and Central America.
Obviously, there are some challenges to be confronting when Indian and Central American businesses want to conduct commercial exchange with one another. What are some of the main challenges?
Well, there are many challenges. I think some of them could be addressed easily than others. Taking a long overview of the situation, we all know that distance is a major challenge, perhaps it has been the most important challenge in the the whole history between India and Central America. So far, we don't have a direct flight, for example, between India and Central America. Actually, there is no direct flight between India and Latin American countries. And cost of logistic by ships, and that is a little bit expensive in that sense. Also, you can have that there is a lack of cultural reference, not only for India in terms of Central America, but for Central America in terms of India. We don't know each other as properly as we should to develop better and stronger economical relations. Language is a very important challenge, because it is interesting, but India, I think, is one of the most with the country with the more languages in terms of population. They have 22 scheduled languages that are like official, not official, but recognized languages that are spoken by more than 10 million people. But they have more than 1,500 dialects that are spoken all over the country. So in terms of business, you speak English, but if you are going to deal directly with the culture, then you have a challenge. And on the other hand, we have the issue with the English. A lot of people in Central America do speak English, mostly in the business sector, but sometimes when you go to the common people, there is a lack on that. Those are main challenges. But again, also, I think it's important the political and diplomatic relation has to be strengthened between the region and India so it can help to develop the rest of the fields of the bilateral relation, like the economic and the trade relation and investment relation. We also need to understand how Indians do business. There is a particular culture of doing business. When you go, for instance, if you go to a market in India by yourself, Steve, you will find out that that's the land of the bargaining. You have to learn to bargain and to bargain in a very intensive way because that's how they do business. And sometimes for our companies, that's difficult, because we do bargain, but we don't bargain the way they do. So this is a small example. Again, as I was saying or mentioning that the relation with Indian business agents is important because most of the Indian companies feel more comfortable talking with their national to do business instead of doing directly business. And that is important. So that's why they use a lot of the trade and commerce and industry chambers to develop the relation with the countries. So as a region, we have the challenge to create more linkages between our chambers of commerce and Indian chambers of commerce, not only in terms of national level, but in state level. India being such a vast country with such a huge population cannot be addressed only as a country. We have to see it as a hub of several important cities that can be as big as any of the Central American countries. For instance, Mumbai being the economic capital of India has almost 15 million people living there. So imagine just a city has almost double the population of El Salvador, for instance. So we have to develop that kind of relation on that kind of level, state level, because that's where the business happens. So I think those are the most important challenges to have in mind while doing business with Indian companies.
We, quite notably, when we look at the traffic that our website, thecentralamericangroup.com gets, surprisingly, we get a pretty steady stream of visitors coming from India.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that this information and you introducing yourself to this audience can produce benefits for both of our organizations.
Yes.
Because this is the case, could you please tell any contact information that people who may be looking and visiting our website from India can use to get into contact with you? Do you have a website, for instance?
Yeah, sure.
How might people communicate with you?
Yeah, sure, Stephen. Thank you. My email is arielandrade@108ca.com. And I'm part of a company called Grupo 108, that stands for Group 108. And our website is 108ca.com. So any person who wants to get in contact with us can write me there, and we can go deep on these topics we have discussed today. And Steve, I find very interesting that there is a lot of web traffic on the web of Grupo Central American Group, and I think that is an example of I was saying about the interest that the region is getting in India in the recent years. And I think it's not only because we have these opportunities we have been saying about near-shoring investment and that kind of things, but also in terms of culture. Um, the north side of Central America, we are the Mayan cultures. And there is some understanding on the Indian side that there should be a relation in past ages of civilization, the Mayan civilization and the Vedic civilization that developed in the Indus Valley River. So some people have that interest and find out which are those links in terms of culture and in terms of knowledge between the two regions. So that's why I created this company, Grupo 108, because 108 is a very important number for them. They see this number as a sacred number. And for us, the Central American and Mayan culture people, the number 9 is very important. But if you see 108, if you add 1, 0, and 8, that is 9. And 9 is the number of the Mayan civilization. So there is a linkage. So that's why I have that number, and I find very interesting to people knows it.
It's a very interesting numerology.
Yes.
I'm going to do for the listeners, in the body, we include a transcript to this discussion under the audio file, and we'll put links to your website, a link to your LinkedIn page, and also we're going to put your email in the text so that everybody will have the opportunity to speak to you just like we have. Yes. I want to thank you very much for joining us today. We wish you a very nice rest of the week, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure for me, and I hope to develop a more deep relation with you in the future, and perhaps having some other discussions here in some other space. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Sign up to receive the Central American Group's quarterly newsletter by visiting www.thecentralamericangroup.com.